June 17th, 1462, Târgoviște, Wallachia. 20,000 corpses impaled on stakes, rotting under the summer sun, eyes picked clean by crows, guts bloated and splitting, marked the road from the Danube plain to Dracula's fortress. Vlad the Impaler didn't build a wall. He built a forest of his enemies' bodies. Mehmet II, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, led 150,000 soldiers toward the heart of Wallachia. But what he found was death swaying on spears, an entire army of the damned whispering a warning: turn back or join them. The chronicles call it defense. But let's call it what it truly was: a mass psychological warfare campaign of monstrous precision, a harvest of horror cultivated for one imperial soul. Before we continue, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I read everyone. The forest of corpses wasn't just for show. It was bait and menace fused, an offense disguised as terror. Vlad III knew every inch of the terrain between the Danube and Târgoviște, the marshes, the shadowed groves, the sudden mountain passes, and so did his spies. While Mehmet's advance forces stumbled upon the rotting spectacle, vomiting and losing morale beneath the carrion sky, Vlad's smaller army slashed and vanished. Not in battle lines, but in whispers through the trees. A farmer slit a janissary's throat and vanished on horseback. A child handed a basket of poisoned fruit to an Ottoman scout. Each death was staged to look accidental, cursed, or God-delivered. And no matter how far they marched, the stench of impalement followed them like breathless ghosts. This wasn't just defense. It was sabotage soaked in gore, ritualized havoc, and a poisoned ballet of insurgent horror. But the terror only began once night fell. That evening, June 17th, as Mehmet's elite vanguard made camp just beyond the forest of corpses, the smell of rot heavy in their lungs, a ripple of horror burst from the dark. Vlad struck with no trumpet, no order of battle, only torchlight, axe blades, and spectral silence preceding screams. His cavalry wore black sheepskins, their horses' hooves wrapped in leather to muffle sound. They rode in a crescent, swooping from the tree line with curved sabers drawn and firepots hurled into tents. The night attack, later called the Night of the Specters, sank into legend for its chaos. Ottoman soldiers, some just boys of 18, slashed at shadows, often hitting their own. Commanders were dragged from bed and gutted while still clutching their concubines. In the smoke and confusion, Vlad's men sought one prize, the Sultan himself. They missed him by moments. Mehmet, roused by an eunuch's panicked cry, barely escaped mounted and half-dressed, his slippers soaked in blood not his own. Across the burning fields, 15,000 Turks lay dead by dawn, not from a siege, but from a ghost army dancing through their dreams, with blades drawn and no mercy. But beneath the flames and screams, another war was whispering through velvet halls. 12 days before Vlad's ambush, a courier disguised as a monk crossed the Danube under cover of night, carrying not scripture, but a coded letter, sealed with black wax and the carved insignia of Matthias Corvinus. The Hungarian king, aged 19 and already buried in a dozen diplomatic affairs, had written in secret to both Vlad and Mehmet, promising aid to one, plotting betrayal of both. The letter offered Vlad 6,000 mercenaries if he assassinated an Ottoman general named Kurtoglu Bali Pasha. But weeks earlier, another message had gone to Mehmet, claiming Vlad was planning an alliance with Moldavia to dethrone the Sultan, and that Matthias would look the other way. The truth? Vlad never saw either letter. His mistress, a courtesan known only as Ilona, intercepted them both, then sold the contents to the highest bidder. For 30 gold coins and her brother's release from a Hungarian prison, she ignited a fire between 3 kingdoms. Her bed hosted kings. Her lips whispered war. And when the letters were finally revealed in a ruined monastery days after the Night of the Specters, blood had already answered diplomacy's lies. By June 20th, Mehmet's army limped forward with hollow eyes and rotting boots. Morale snapped like brittle bone. The Ottoman force, once 150,000 proud and disciplined, splintered into muttering factions of deserters, wounded loyalists, and commanders who no longer trusted their own shadows. Horses refused to eat, spooked by the constant reek of scorched corpses and the soft moans that drifted from pyres built too quickly. But the true rot lay within the chain of command. In the tent of Grand Vizier Karamanli Pasha, a bloody dagger was found beneath his cot. Not Ottoman, Wallachian, he had been stabbed before dawn, slashed across the throat as he prayed, by a man in Janissary armor who vanished on foot. That assassin? A former slave turned bodyguard named Rafet, paid in sapphires by Ilona's brother, bought with treachery and fury. Rafet's motive wasn't gold, it was vengeance. Karamanli had once confiscated Rafet's wife as a war bride in Edirne. Now the vizier's blood marked the rising of a new war, not just of empires, but of vendettas, knives, and ghosts that wore the faces of once loyal men. On June 22nd, the sky cracked open with a thunderstorm that soaked earth, steel, and spirit alike. Mehmet, still shaken and sleepless, held war council beneath a sagging canopy, while lightning outlined the distant Carpathians like a jagged crown. Reports came thick with dread. Another 5 scouting parties vanished, 4 supply lines raided, and now a moldy crate of salted meat contaminated with powdered belladonna. Poison from within. Suspicion bloomed like rot. Was it treachery from Wallachians disguised in Turkish garb? Or had Vlad's hand already reached inside Mehmet's sanctum? Worse, near the ruins of a burned-out chapel, soldiers found 20 heads arranged in a circle, each tongue ripped out, each mouth stuffed with poppy petals. A symbol known in Wallachian folklore to mark traitors silenced by their own crimes. Mehmet ordered the heads buried. His janissaries whispered of a curse. But it wasn't superstition that hollowed the Ottoman Empire that week. It was the bloody calculus of a prince who understood fear, betrayal, and beauty as equal instruments of war. Vlad, once exiled, once imprisoned, now ruled from caverns and shadows, draping vengeance across the land like a funeral shroud stitched with the sins of kings. And still, the forest of corpses stood, unmoving, unyielding, undefeated. Rain could not wash their warnings away, nor silence the whispers of the damned, but Mehmet refused to retreat. Pride is a heavier crown than gold, and the blood already spilled demanded conquest. So he ordered his remaining troops, less than 110,000 now, to fan out and surround Târgoviște by the 26th. Yet every approach path twisted with new horrors. In the northern ravines, scouts reported finding spikes driven through entire families, mother, father, child, impaled in a line with hands bound in prayer. In the southern fields, entire villages greeted the Ottomans with open gates and rotting wine laced with arsenic. And on the eastern road, a hastily abandoned hamlet revealed a forgotten tragedy. Nailed to the church doors were the bodies of 10 Ottoman defectors, all stripped and marked with the sign of the wolf, the war sigil Vlad had used when hunting traitors. Among them was Lieutenant Sinan al-Basir, age 27, Vlad's former scribe and secret lover, who had betrayed his prince for a Turkish coin purse and a promise of freedom. His betrayal was never spoken of aloud at court, but it was sung in blood on timber, displayed as a warning to all who dared wear love like armor in a world made of knives. By June 24th, Târgoviște itself became a stage set for slaughter. Vlad, knowing Mehmet would soon surround the capital, emptied the city's formal gates and left behind a deception. Streets lined with wax mannequins dressed in captured Ottoman uniforms smeared with fresh animal blood. From high towers, mirrors were angled to reflect these still figures in torchlight, making them seem like legions mustering in silence. But beneath the illusion, Vlad gathered his real forces deeper in the hills, sharpening blades and brewing venom from wolf's bane and monk's hood. Meanwhile, inside the city's old monastery, a trial was held with no clergy, no defense, just a confession scrawled in blood across parchment. The treason of Boyar Dumitru Kostin, Vlad's cousin and one-time rival, who had plotted to open the gates in exchange for a governorship under Mehmet. The execution was fast, personal, and biblical. Vlad slashed his cousin's gut open and hung him from bell ropes by his intestines, making the bells toll with every final spasm. His death echoed above the empty streets, a song of betrayal devoured by vengeance, and still the walls held. Mehmet drew closer, but so did the dead. June 26th arrived not with trumpet or siege tower, but with silence thick enough to choke. Mehmet's scouts approached Târgoviște expecting resistance, and instead found gates wide open. The wax soldiers melted in the heat, and the city undisturbed. No guards, no townspeople, no horses, no birds, no bodies. Vlad had retreated into the forested hills, taking every living soul with him, and leaving behind only stillness and the riddle of absence. It was a trap of silence, a final insult carved in emptiness. The Sultan entered the city under full guard, wary of poison, ambush, or phantoms. But there was no explosion, no final ambush, no flood of arrows. Just a throne room stripped bare, the banner of Wallachia torn in two, and a single iron stake hammered through a black velvet pillow. No note, no corpse, just implication. Vlad had vanished. The Impaler gave no final stand because he didn't need to. Mehmet marched 800 miles through filth, fire, and fear to find nothing left to conquer. His army reduced by over 40,000 dead, a treasury emptied, his generals butchered or shamed, and his pride impaled without blade. It was not a victory. It was a vanishing act, soaked in blood. And on the ride back to the empire's heart, no songs were sung. Only hooves crunching bone, and the occasional echo of a scream too old to be real, yet far too loud to ignore. The battlefield fell silent. The conspirators were executed. The affair was erased from history. But in the end, love and violence always leave the same stain, blood that never washes clean. And yet, centuries later, the mist still clings to the forests of Wallachia, as if memory itself refuses to loosen its grip. No monument marks the night of the Specters. No plaque honors the Impaled. But locals speak of midnight bells that toll without wind, of shadows riding past broken monasteries, and of a rider in black who vanishes when followed. Vlad III left no empire behind, only a legend carved from torment, vengeance, and fractured loyalties. His crimes were never tried, his lovers never named, and his triumphs never officially recorded. But blood remembers, and in the silence after war, it is always the unresolved sins that echo longest. Even now, beneath root and ruin, the soil does not forget. The palace walls may have crumbled, but the screams and the whispered names of traitors and lovers still haunt the trees. Centuries buried the truth beneath myth, but one thing the old Wallachian mothers still warned their children: never trust silence in the woods near Târgoviște. Because Vlad's vengeance wasn't just revenge, it was religion. It baptized saboteurs with fire, crucified betrayal in meadows, wedded war to seduction, and preached through impalement. Behind every cliffside echo and each ruined citadel, his legacy remains not carved in stone, but whispered in the wind. Every blade has a reason. Every scream once had a name. In the end, Vlad did not survive through empire or peace. He survives through fear. A fear so precise, so intimate, it outlived regimes, swallowed archives, and even seduced the devil out of monks and kings. The chronicles may have buried his sins, but his legend will forever breathe through blood-soaked soil and the stories no priest would ever dare read aloud. And that, perhaps, is the truest power of terror. It needs no monument. Because what lives in silence never dies. It waits. And so the forest remained, no longer a battlefield, but a mausoleum without mercy. Rain fed the earth, roots tangled in rib cages, and wildflowers grew over the places where lovers screamed their final secrets. No empire reclaimed it. No bishop blessed it. Every soldier who passed through swore they felt watched, weighed, and warned. What Vlad built wasn't just a defense of land. It was a cathedral of terror where betrayal rang louder than prayer. No one truly conquered Târgoviște, because to conquer, one must first understand, and no man alive could grasp what Vlad had become. Not tyrant, not saint, not ruler, not ghost. Just one unrelenting truth locked in soil and silence. Fear never dies. It only changes form. And sometimes it grows teeth. The whispers still call his name, carried by roots, wind, and memory. Vlad, voivode, impaler, priest of retribution, and god of war. And so, the war that left no battlefield claimed its final soul, not by blade or poison, but by withdrawal. Mehmet returned to Istanbul diminished, silent, and changed. Not in scars, but in eyes that no longer trusted shadows. The court chroniclers scribbled of weather, terrain, logistics, never of the concubines he ordered drowned for whispering Vlad's name during sleep, or the advisors he flogged for speaking of the forest in hushed tones. They never recorded that one night, months later, he awoke screaming barefoot onto marble courtyards, calling out to no one. Vlad, meanwhile, was never seen again in open court. Some say he vanished into the Carpathians. Others claim he lived disguised as a monk in the ruins of the very monastery where his cousin's blood had painted the bells. What remained was not a leader nor legend, but a silence that infected kingdoms. No empire would launch a full invasion of Wallachia again for decades. And in the shadows of every torchlit corridor, the rumor remained, betray him, deceive him, love him, and he will know. Not by spies, but by the sting of guilt and the silence that grows colder with every breath. The forest holds no bodies now, but the fear, that still stands, sharp as stakes, and waiting. Yet the most enduring horror was not the blood, the bodies, or even the whispers, but the love that damned kingdoms. Ilona, the courtesan who touched more than royal flesh. She moved nations. Her name was erased, her lineage smudged in confessionals, but her betrayal rippled through every battle Vlad waged. It was she who whispered secret travel routes into the ears of a Moldavian merchant. She who pressed the wax seal onto the letter that nearly undid Matthias Corvinus. Her price? Her brother's life? Her cost? Thousands more. Some say Vlad discovered her treachery, yet did not kill her. Instead, he vanished when she most expected his blade, leaving her to rot in paranoia, a fate worse than impalement. Others say he kept her in a hidden abbey, fed but never spoken to, her voice stolen by a monk's blade across her throat. The truth? Lost beneath centuries and shame. But one thing is etched in legend. When she died, no bells tolled. Only the wind, pressing through hollow stakes where lovers once screamed and gods of war once wept. And in that silence, her name was heard no more. And thus, the tale bleeds to its final drop. Not with thunder or steel, but with a silence that even time could not erode. The chronicles fell quiet. The empires marched on. The kings and sultans died in velvet beds or iron cages. But Vlad remained, not in title, not in tomb, but in legend soaked deep into the veins of the forest. In the year's darkest hours, hunters say the winds still shift unnaturally near Târgoviște, whispering names long erased, slicing through trees like sabers of memory. No monument bears his image, no widow leaves flowers. But every silence around a fire, every rumor passed in wine-soaked fear, every twitch of torchlight near monastery ruins, all of it speaks of him. The warlord who turned love into sabotage, betrayal into scripture, and blood into the very ink by which history was denied. There was no legacy to inherit, no son to crown, no truth untainted. Only what remains in shadow, the forest, the stake, the silence, and the fear that still lingers, whispering that he is never truly gone. Only waiting, just beyond the edge of light. So ends the saga, not of conquest, but of contamination, of souls, of soil, of stories etched deeper than ink. Vlad the Impaler did not need victory, only memory, and memory bowed to him, not with trumpets, but trembling. The Sultan limped back to an empire fractured by whispers. Ilona's name dissolved like poison in wine. And Vlad? He did not rise again as vampire or myth, but as the breath behind every hush, the ache in every betrayal, the cold behind every oath broken in moonlight. He built nothing eternal, only terror, and terror endures. The war is over, the corpses are gone. But if you listen closely, past rustling leaves and the hush of forgotten prayers, you'll hear it. Not a voice, but a presence. Not a scream, but the silence that follows. The silence that still impales. The silence that waits. And as the last breath of this blood-soaked tale escapes, the forest forgets nothing. Târgoviște sleeps beneath ivy and ruin, but the land still pulses with the echoes of betrayals too profound to be confessed. Nothing was settled. No graves were hallowed. The crownless prince remains more feared than worshipped, more myth than mortal, yet always present. In every silence that follows violence, in every betrayal tucked behind velvet curtains, in every kiss woven from strategy and sin, Vlad lives. The final victory wasn't land seized or armies slain. It was memory, twisted and feral, that took root between the stakes and bloomed into eternal fear. And as long as secrets are whispered behind banners, as long as war dresses itself in seduction and treachery, his name will never fade, not in ink, not in prayer, only in blood. So let the chronicles lie. Let kings be buried beneath titles they never earned, and warlords soaked in sanctity they never sought. Vlad Tepes, Impaler, Voivode, Executioner, Son of the Dragon, needed no coronation, no eulogy, no redemption. His true monument stood not in marble, but in the hush before betrayal, in the dread before thunder, in the unspoken dread of vengeance, righteous and unwritten. Wallachia bled, empires fractured, lovers were unmade, and yet, in the forest where no birds sing and no prayers rise, one truth still reigns. Some wars are never declared, only remembered. His was won, and it ended not in surrender, but in the silence of 1,000 throats cut clean, 1,000 names never pardoned. The stakes may rot, the banners may fade, but fear, that sacred relic he carved from human despair, stands eternal, unimpaled. And this is where we leave it, not with peace, not even with aftermath, but with a question that no empire dared ask aloud. What if the greatest weapon was not the blade, nor the poison, nor the army, but the wound left open? Vlad the Impaler did not redefine warfare. He reshaped memory itself. His legacy is not a conquered province or a surviving bloodline, but a rupture, a fracture in the soul of every witness, every traitor, every lover who kissed with caution. The Ottoman ledgers closed the campaign as incomplete. The Hungarian archives redacted alliances. The monasteries burned the letters. But the forest of 20,000 corpses still looms, not in the flesh, but in the imagination of kings who sleep uneasily and warriors who pause before crossing certain borders. He taught the world that silence scars deeper than steel, that vengeance is not finite, that love weaponized topples thrones. So study your maps, memorize your prayers, kiss carefully. Because the stake you don't see, the one whispered in shadows, glazed in promises, heavy with guilt, is the one already waiting. Vlad never truly finished his war. He just left the world bleeding where it stood. And so it ends, not in resolution, but in echo. Vlad's war was no campaign of borders, but of belief. The belief that loyalty is a lie, that mercy is weakness, that fear will always outlast flesh. He left behind no dynasty, no chapel, no victory sermon, just ghosts shaped like strategy, betrayal, and feral devotion. The trees remember. The soil speaks in silence. And every empire that followed heard the lesson, even if they dared not speak it. To rule is to haunt. Vlad did not vanish. He became the footstep behind coronations, the chill behind royal vows, the shadow at every war council. Love betrayed him, power hunted him, but silence crowned him. And in the final tally of kingdoms broken and empires lost, only he remains untouched, because what terrifies is eternal. Not flesh, not fire, but memory sharpened into myth and vengeance left unburied. And so we lower our voice, not out of reverence, but because even a whisper carries weight in Wallachia. Vlad the Impaler reigned not through courts or councils, not through treaties or titles, but through terror that became theology. His victories were not recorded, they were felt, in the breathless pauses between declarations, in the errant glance of a commander remembering torchlit screams. No monument named him ruler, no ode sang his virtues, but his name was etched where it mattered, in the marrow of traitors, in the hymns of fearful lovers, in the silence that falls just before a dagger is drawn. The forest no longer stands. The bones are dust. But the fear, the legacy, the strategy of horror, woven with heartbreak and sharpened trust, that remains, eternal, intact, unrepentant. Not all legends fade into myth. Some are sharpened into warnings. Vlad's terror was never about death alone. It was about clarity. Clarity that honor can be a blade held against one's own throat, that love can kindle war more effectively than flame, and that a man betrayed too many times will choose to burn the world rather than beg it for peace. This was not strategy. It was scripture written in intestines, commandments carved from fear and sealed with silence. Centuries passed. New kingdoms rose. Borders shifted. But every whisper before betrayal still echoes his name. Vlad did not need worship. He demanded remembrance. and in the trembling of those who still pause at the edge of forgotten woods, who dare not speak forbidden names beneath thunderclouds, he is still heard, still watching, still waiting between the trees. Fear was his gospel, and we are still devout. So remember this, that some rulers etched their reign in marble, others in law, but Vlad the Impaler carved his kingdom in silence, sinew, and sin. He built fear not as a weapon, but as a sanctuary. His throne sat not in a chamber, but in the crumbling threshold between devotion and dread. And though time has swallowed the bones, the banners, the breath of those who screamed his name in terror or in longing, one truth roots itself deeper than any dynasty. The past does not sleep in Wallachia. It watches. It waits. It whispers your name when you think no one can hear. Because the man history dared not understand did not die. He deepened into frost, into forest, into every shiver of the wind that comes too suddenly, and every silence that settles where horror once howled. Hell did not claim him. History could not hold him, and heaven would never dare welcome him. Vlad did not fall. He became the fear by which empires measure their own ghosts, and that perhaps is horror's final crown.